everyone. Welcome back to the Next Big Thing podcast. I'm your host, Diditi, and today I'll be speaking to the very talented indie pop artist, Alisun. Alisun has taken the music industry by storm with their singles like Around the World, which released in summer, this past summer, Hyperthermia, and They Live in and Around Us. She will soon be releasing her most anticipated EP by the end of this month. And along with being a musician, she is also an advocate for animals and the environment and an inspiration to many. Alison, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for that beautiful intro. So excited to talk about everything.
All right, tell us a little bit about your journey and how did you get here?
Yeah, so I feel like everything started from a very young age. Sorry, my parrot's screaming back there. One of my animal friends. I started practicing piano and taking lessons when I was around 4. I started performing in local theaters around that age as well, 4 to 5. I took dance my whole life, and from there, it really gave me preparation to be where I am now, even though that wasn't what I thought I was going to do as a kid. So, as a kid, I thought that I was going to be a vet, or an animal rescuer in Africa, or a scientist or an inventor. I always wanted to find cures for things, or so. As a kid, I would think of inventions that could help the world. So I wanted to invent like this laser gun food grow really big for places that don't have like a lot of food, so they can just laser it up like in my kid imagination. Things like that, or like potions that you could take. Like that was always stuff that would go on in my mind when I wanted to be a scientist or things like that. So it wasn't really until later in life when I was in high school and I joined theater. I fell in love with theater. I fell in love with being on stage again. I fell in love with embracing like a character persona on stage rather than having all the pressure be on me, because before having all of that, having like all eyes on you for being you is so much more pressure than having all eyes on you for being a character. So it made me gain a lot more confidence on the stage and in the way that I perform and interact with the audience, and just kind of like play around with who I can be rather than like who I believed that I was. And so that gave me a lot of freedom. It made me fall in love with being on the stage again in a different way. And then a year later, for like 2 years, I was a backup singer for Camila and living that tour life. In a very raw way, like waking up super early, having super late shows, and then 2 hours after the show's done, packing and leaving and being in the bus or like in the van for like 7 hours, and et cetera, et cetera. It really allowed me to understand what this career entails. And so, and I loved it, and I loved doing it, and I loved every part of it, even like the days where you wouldn't eat as much because I have a very particular diet. So, um, not back then though. Back then I was still vegetarian, so I'd eat a lot of ice cream, um, and pizza, honestly. So not the healthiest, but we made it. So yeah, I think that those events in my life helped me just fall in love with this as a career. It was then when I started writing music, and when I started listening to the things that I would write, and if I liked them, I would accept them, and if I wouldn't like them, then I would kind of be like, not that one, or But the fact that it just started coming, that creative process, I think that really confirmed that this is for me, and that it's something that I'm passionate about, and what I would write about had pretty profound meaning to me. And so I was like, well, if it can impact me this way, maybe it can impact somebody else. And I think that when we choose this career, we have to really focus on why we're doing it. And so I think that my why was in the right place, for me to want this to be my own career.
Mhm. Amazing. You kind of started, like you mentioned, you kind of started your journey with theater. So what was that moment where you were like, I don't want to pursue acting as much, but I want to go into like music in particular?
Mm. So it's interesting because I kind of did want to pursue acting alongside singing for a long time. I think that singing just came more natural because I've been doing it for so long. Um, I think that just through my own creativity, it kind of steered me more towards the musical direction rather than like theater musicals or theater um, performances or on screen stuff. But it's still something that interests me, and it's something that I would love to do after I establish myself with my singing career. And so I think that it's always good to solidify one thing and then continue to the next for my own philosophy. So I think the future would be amazing still. But I think that naturally I'm just more uh, naturally guided to music.
Right, amazing. You also mentioned that you sung for the rock band Camilla, and you went on tour with them. So can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, it was a huge step for me. It was a huge school for me because before that experience, I would shake on stage from how scared I was, and I experienced that basically every time I sang. When I after being like 12, I would just like got really self-conscious, was very fearful of everything, and like was more aware of what was going on than when I was a kid. So doing it night or weekend after weekend, sometimes night after night, it really allowed me to take like tiny steps forward that eventually became bigger steps. So Mario, the main singer of the band, would have every background singer have the opportunity to do a duet with him throughout the show. And so my duet, during mine, I used to hold onto the piano so that it wouldn't look like I was shaking. And so, like, my first step was letting go of the piano and then, like, never holding onto it in the first place. And then, like, not, literally not shaking. And then, et cetera, moving around, strengthening my voice, enjoying it, and going from, like, the fear of it to enjoying it a lot was like a huge step for me because the fear was really big for me for a long time. And so now, and especially now, like that prepared me to be who I am now because I feel like throughout my own inner work as well after that experience, um, I've centered myself as to what I'm doing when I'm performing, and I think about it as if I'm serving through the frequency of my voice and to not worry about, if you mess up, if something's not perfect, if you look strange at a certain part, or all these things that the monkey mind used to say to me, um, are now like, no, feel what you need to feel and transmit your emotion and be present and serve through the frequency of your voice. And so that really changed the dynamic for me as well in terms of growth throughout these years. And I'm really thankful for that because it's a beautiful experience for me to feel that way, to feel that music is here to serve.
That is a very unique and amazing way to look at the prospects of your life. I want to say, your name is spelled in a very unique way, like your artist or stage name, let's say. Is there a story behind it?
There's a couple. So I couldn't decide on what my name was going to be for a long time. I originally was going to call myself something that wasn't even my name. I don't know. Because I was like, oh, I like this name like more and it just fits me and I like resonate with this as who I am forever. And then I went through a couple of more options and then I was like, well, I might as well. I would get feedback from people I would ask, I'm like, what do you think about this name? What do you think about this name? And to a lot of the options, they were just like, no, no, not you, not this, not that. And so I'm like, ah, okay. So to combine my first name and my last name, since Sol means sun, I was like, maybe just Alisun, and I can also be like a light bringer through my name, sun. And so that is more of like the conclusion I came to, just allowing myself to be a light bringer through the frequency of my name as well. I like it being spelled that way. I think it's fun and it's still my name. So,
Mhm.
yeah, that's basically how that came to be.
Yeah, that's a very unique kind of way of spelling it, and the meaning behind it too, like your last name and your first name, but it's still your name without like changing what it is already. And you were born in California and raised in California, right? But you have Cuban and Mexican roots. So I want to ask, how has your identity kind of influenced the projects you create and the music you create?
I think that I associate my identity with the way I was raised more than both cultures because I think that the way I was raised allowed me to be very expansive and allowed me to have, like growing up in the US, there's a lot of free flowing thoughts, you know, it's a very open minded place to live. And so I think that having that environment alongside a multicultural environment allowed me to have curiosity to explore more cultures and more sounds and more ways of expressing throughout the world. I think that those things are what I try to integrate into my music beyond just where I'm from or where my heritage is from. Because I see myself more as a citizen of the world than being like from the US or
Mhm.
a Mexican Cuban person. I see myself as just a citizen of the world. I don't really see like boundaries. And so I try to just have that openness to receive and to honor and to express like origin sounds,
Mhm.
sounds that are from places that have been kept that way. And just and I also like blending genres a lot because I've had phases with like every type of music in my life. And so I've experimented with blending that and just like finding my own within everything that I've
Mhm.
heard. So yeah, that's more of how I would describe it beyond just my heritage, but
Mhm.
more so like how I was raised.
Right, amazing. And as a young female artist in the music industry, you know, you started pretty young. You're still young. What kind of challenges have you overcome?
I think the biggest challenge for me has been self image for so.
Mhm.
I think that many women can relate to that, and like I used to be so hard on myself all the time for every little thing because I wasn't merged with who I am. I wasn't speaking to the being inside. I was speaking to the being I saw in the mirror. And so I think that once I started connecting to the being inside and listening to her, that really changed everything for me because
Mhm.
I used to base how much someone would want to interact with me based off how I looked or based off how um, like nice I could be or things like that, rather than like who am I really and what do I want from this life or things like that. And so I think that that's a huge one for me. And now I don't even think about how I look, and I'm happy when I'm at my fullest from just having gluten, which I normally don't have, but if I have it in my stomach, it's like a ball. I'm like, that's a cute little ball in there. Like I'm not like, ah, I'm so like large now. I'm just, you know, I'm like every version of me. I love every version now. And I think that
Mhm.
that helps me have eyes that go more out and allow me to interact this way rather than like this eyes this way. And I think
Mhm.
the energy that we can receive that way is so different. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very challenging to be like a media presence with, you know, a lot of people like commenting about your body and like commenting about the way you look rather than the music, you know. So yeah, that's a good outlook to have in life as well. I kind of want to discuss how would you describe your music as an like a third person point of view?
I would describe it as experiential because I can't really define the style myself
Mhm.
since it keeps evolving as well over time. And we'll see more of that over time, as of course, because only a few things are out now. But um, I see it very much like an experience rather than a style. So
Mhm.
Like when I close my eyes and I experience my own, I see a lot of movies in my brain. And I like that. And I like that there are sounds in other places too that allow me to access that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Going back to the thing about like movies that you create in your brain, your music videos are also very like captivating, and it's very like spiritual and like whimsical and ethereal. So like, what kind of who or like what inspires your style for the projects? Like, where do you usually look for inspiration?
Hmm. I feel like my inspiration always comes from my mind for the music videos, and normally, like, my idea is so crazy and like out there that we reel it in by like so much. Because in my mind, for hypothermia, like, I don't know how much things are, like, how things work, so I have no idea what's able to be done and stuff. But since when I wrote the song Hypothermia, I originally called it that because the vision in my mind was me running in the woods, um, being chased by something, and I fall and I'm dying of hypothermia, and my soul like comes out, and I'm seeing all the memories of my life like in front of my eyes. And so I wanted to have like a moment where I'm like laying down and I fall and my soul comes out and I'm like looking at all these things. I think when I express that, everyone's like, you can't really do that. So I think that I would consider myself to be a very creative person. Um, and depending on who I'm around, I feel like certain people also just inspire that in me as well, because I feel like I'm very curious, and like I just imagine things sometimes, like who everyone is, like inside or in the other realms or things like that. So I like to think in those ways.
Okay. Creativity, it means different things for different people, and sometimes it's hard to kind of express your vision to someone who does not maybe get your vision because it means different things for them, right? So, what does creativity mean to you as an artist personally?
I think creativity just means access to the infinite. Because I think that the more creative someone is, the more access they have to the infinite. And so I know that no one's ever going to see the exact movie in my mind, but I'm always open to, receiving their movie in their mind. And so I try to always have that balance. Um, but yeah, creativity to me, I feel like the more that we can meditate or go within, the more we can access that, the more that we decalcify our pineal gland, the more also that we can access that.
Hmm. And is there like a certain kind of art that you would want to create, like with your music or with your music videos?
Yes, I'm not sure how I would describe it, but um, yeah, definitely. I think that at some point I'll try to exemplify it. I also like to paint on my own on the side. I'm not very good at it, but I want to be able to be better at that creatively as well, and maybe make something as like my own album cover that I made or something like that in the future. But yeah, I definitely would want to put that into my music videos.
Mm-hmm. Alright. Alright, amazing. I'm also very into painting and all that. Everything creative, it means a lot to me as well. And has there been any like certain piece of art, doesn't matter in which form, that has touched your life or made a prominent impact in your life?
Mm. For me, soundtracks for sure are a huge one for me because I feel like they're decorating your life experience. And that's kind of my goal as well with my own sound, to just decorate life's experience in a way. And also, I don't know if you've heard of Alex Gray.
Not sure about him.
His art to me is like insane. It is so crazy and amazing, and it's like I've seen these things,
Mhm.
they're drawn out by somebody else, and it's like, wow. So I really love his art. I really love
Mhm.
cinematography, like independent films that make you, uh, for example, like one of my favorite movies is Amelie,
Mhm.
and just like the uniqueness of how they're so intimate with every character and like playing with the colors, and even if the plot isn't like a huge dramatic thing, you just leave with like an experience, and you leave with wondering like, what aspects of this character do I have, or
Mhm.
things like that. I love things like that.
Mhm.
Avid.
All right. Uh, Speaking of aspects of character, if you had to describe yourself as a third person point of view, in it, what kind of artistic component do you think you have, like from your favorite artist?
mm, I think I have authenticity,
Mhm.
and I think that all of my favorite artists in any art form have that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. And who would be your dream collaboration in the music industry? Like, what's one artist, whether that be like, someone to design your album cover or someone to direct your music videos, who would be your like your dream collaboration?
Musically, I would love to collab with James Horner, Aurora, Billie Eilish, Lady Gaga. They would be a dream to work with.
Mhm.
Um, Videography wise, Andrew Thomas Huang, I really love his work. James Cameron would be phenomenal, you know, in a dream, but I love Avatar. I love his
Mhm.
mind, his vision, his ability to
Mhm.
execute is just
Mhm.
phenomenal. Um, yeah, I would really, really love to collab with them.
Mhm. Is there anyone in the music industry that you sort of like look up to as an artist?
Mm. I really look up to Aurora because she is so unapologetically her, and everything that she writes about, I know that it's so niche,
Mhm.
and that her messages and her style to more of maybe like a commercial um, team, they could say,
Mhm.
oh, this isn't gonna work, or this isn't gonna do well, or whatever.
Mhm.
And she does it because she knows that that's what needs to be done, and it's beautiful.
Mhm.
And I really, really admire her for that.
Mhm. Yeah, I think Aurora also has the same kind of feeling of, very like whimsical kind of music that you kind of produce. So I saw like a little bit of similarity there where you were when I was like listening to your music as well. Yeah, other than music, you also support and advocate for philanthropic causes like 8 billion trees, World Wildlife Fund, the Orangutan Project. You're very immersed with these organizations. So how did you get involved into this?
So for 8 billion trees, it actually came up as an ad on my Instagram one day.
Mhm.
And it was like, this amount of trees is dying every second, or like so far that you've watched this video, or something like that. And I'm just like, don't tell me, because I'm gonna, like, that's it. I have to be a part of this. And I think that anything that has to do with restoration of the forest and protection of the forests that are already there is so, so, so important. The Amazon holds such a deep and dear place in my heart that I just have to do something. Like, even if I can't be there, support someone who can, or things
Mhm.
like that. And so that's really what led me to the 8 Billion Trees Project. The orangutan projects, well, the palm oil industry and the palm
Mhm.
industry is destroying their habitats, and just learning more and more about that, and how such few, I feel like very few people know about it.
Mhm.
Um, Monkeys have always been some of my most like dear animals that I
Mhm.
like as a kid. I would feel like I was a monkey, and like I would climb all the way to the top of the
Mhm.
tree, like all the way to the top,
Mhm.
and just like feel like, where's the other ones, and like, why aren't they in society? And I would always kind of question that, like, why aren't more like wild animals in society, or like why aren't they here? And then later on, learning about the palm oil industry and seeing like everything that happens there, I have to support them. The World Wildlife Fund is also an organization that protects endangered species. So when I wanted to be an animal rescuer as a kid, I wanted to always protect the endangered species, like rhinos and elephants and everything else along those lines, because of poaching that happens in Africa and all these things. So having people that are there protecting them, I'm like, okay, well, you guys have my vote as well, of course. So I donate to them every month, and I have for years. But when I make my own money, I definitely should I once when I make my own money, I definitely want to donate more, and maybe even create my own organization and hire people for other specific causes as well, because it's so important. And if the species of this earth leave, the consciousness of this earth will lower and lower and lower. And I think that it's something that people don't really think about, like the frequency that these animals are holding for everyone. So
Do you see a relationship between your music and the social causes that you care about?
absolutely, yeah. I think that I emphasize them maybe a little bit too much. Sometimes, because I showed my manager all of my songs, and a lot of them are like talking about the same thing in terms of like, we need to take care of the earth, we need to take care of its beings, we need to stop, only thinking of ourselves, and like everything that we do matters. And um there was 3 or 4 songs that he's like, and what's this one about? And I'm like, this thing again. And he's like, and this one. I'm like, this. He's like, okay, yeah, I think we get the message. But I I think that it's important though, and I think that for me, I tend to listen to certain songs that have a similar message, but it's a message that I really care about. So I like the different ways of expressing it. So I don't really mind for myself in my own listening ways, but I definitely express my philosophy and things that I stand for and advocate for.
Mhm. Do you believe that music can be vehicle to make a change in the world?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I mean, if we repeat anything enough times, it becomes our reality. So I think that if we're repeating beautiful things, then we create a beautiful world. And if we are repeating harmful things, then we are creating what we're listening to, And that's, for me, just like the basis of what reality is. And so I always think about that. And that's why I try to be as specific as I can be now with my lyrics. When I was 17, when I wrote this EP that's coming out, and or 19 for the second EP, I didn't think about the amount of precision. I didn't write with as much precision as I write now. And even though I say that, a lot of the time the lyrics just come, and if they are coming to me from like an outside source in my that my brain is accessing, I don't question it, and I just put it down and don't think about it at all. So
Mhm,
it's interesting. It's like a balance of guidance and being very clear about what we're creating.
mhm,
But yeah, I think that there's also certain things that activate us emotionally that will create the change beyond the words. Like certain songs, like Mundieo, for example, that is the name of the EP and also the focus track in the EP. Mundieo is a song that talks about how we're treating the earth, and how so many people are too numb to hear the cries of the earth now. And
mhm,
it's not there to create more numbness, but instead to
mhm,
activate and question, like, am I one of those people, or
mhm,
am I in tune with what's happening? Or what are my actions creating in the world? What are my decisions creating in the world? And even though the message is more hurt and like, come on, I think that the emotion that it creates is action, or turns into action. So it's a balance.
Uh, how is that process like for you to kind of create entertaining kind of piece for people to listen to and still like enjoy it, and also like advocate for the environment or the causes? How is that process like for you?
I think it was easier for me to write more commercial things back in that day, or when I was 17 and 19, while still advocating for the message, because to me, I I write what I wish I could hear. And so like I wish that there was more things that you could dance to and enjoy but that have a good message instead of the other way around. So I feel like for me, I just go about it by creating what I wish there was instead of focusing on, I guess, any particular audience, any particular sound or style. Just like, what does this song want to tell me? Um, and I'll put it in there, and just letting the melody to be something that I enjoy, and then the lyrics to be something that we need. Yeah.
um do you usually like come up with your own lyrics, or do you like collaborate with somebody?
Yeah, I always come up with my own lyrics. I had a little bit of help on Fuego because at the time my Spanish was worse. So certain things that I would write, they would listen and be like, that doesn't really make sense. So I did have a little bit of help with Fuego, but every other song, it's fully me. And with Fuego, is like one or two words that just needed to be adjusted here and there. It's still pretty solid of my own creation, but yeah, I'm definitely open to working with others for sure as well. I enjoy other people's form of expression, but I've naturally done it on my own so far.
Like you said, you have a new EP releasing this month, Mundeo. What was the inspiration or like intention to create this album?
So with this album, I think that it started by picking the first 5 songs um, that my producer resonated with, if any, because I didn't think that he was gonna like any of them, honestly. Um, and so when he was like, "Oh, I like this one, I like that one, we have to do this one," I was like, "Oh, okay," because a week before, I visited his friend and showed him his friend that recommended me to him, and I showed him my songs, and I was like, "Be completely honest. Like, I don't want you to sugarcoat anything. Um, are these songs that you think would be listenable for people? I don't know the word that people would want to listen to and this and that." He's like, "Okay, show me." And I know that he's very, very honest. And so he listened to them and he was like, "Honestly, these all suck." Uh, and I was like, "Okay, thank you. Like, thank you. I needed that because I wouldn't really know if I didn't have any feedback." And then when I met my producer, I was like, he was like, "So do you have anything of your own?" And I was like, "Yeah, I have like, 6 or 10 songs, but they're not good, but I can show you them." And I showed him them, and he was like, "Ah, like I love these songs." And so I was like, "Oh, I guess everyone's different, but um, but yeah." So it's interesting how that stuff happens. So I think we just kind of went about it that way, honestly.
And were you like happy, or are you happy with the project that you have created?
I am. I used to want a little bit more of like tropical sounding bongo drums in around the world. I wanted it more to be like a more like tropical song, but I think that everything is about how it needs to be. So I think that maybe when I do it on stage, I can add those tropical elements back in and stuff like that. But that's the only detail that I'm kind of like, oh, I kind of wish I like pushed for that a little bit more. But with all the other ones, I think that they're exactly all of them are really exactly what they're meant to be. So yeah.
Mhm. The name of the album is quite like unique as well. I've never heard an album with that name that you have for this album. So what was like the name choosing process for this album?
So I actually made this word, mundieo, and
Mhm,
it means action on time for the earth, acting
mhm,
on time for the earth, and
mhm,
that's what is chanted in the song as well. So I think that since it's the focus track as well in the album, I thought that it would, or my team actually thought that it would be a good idea to name it that way. So I was like, it's not a bad idea. Let's just do it that way. And I really
mhm,
like it. I think that it's also very unique as an album or EP name. Um,
mhm,
and yeah, it's something that I think kind of sticks out because I think that people might wonder what it means, and then listening
mhm,
to the song, it makes more and more sense. So yeah,
mhm. Um, and what sort of things are you hoping to achieve from this album?
I think I'm just hoping. Honestly, for years I've just been hoping to get it out. So I'm like,
Mhm,
it's finally out there. What happens happens,
mhm,
but like
mhm,
2 years of it just sitting around was so frustrating to me. So I'm like, it's finally just there, finally. So
mhm,
I think I haven't really thought of like beyond getting it out because that's been my focus for so long. I hope that it
mhm,
influences people to focus more on their actions towards the earth. I would hope that it influences
mhm,
people to like reflect more on their decisions every day and take steps, even if it's one little thing at a time, to create the world that we want to see instead of just accepting the
mhm,
world that we're given. And so
mhm,
I really hope that that is what is created. Yeah,
mhm.
through the songs.
Um, where do you want your music sort of like head to? Like, which direction do you want to take your music?
I would love to. It's interesting because what I write now is already so different from what is out right now.
Mhm,
So I think I'm open to what it needs to be. Um, I
mhm,
really like cinematographic styles. Yeah,
mhm.
I think that's how you say it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
sounds and styles. I really like funky styles. I like bouncy styles. I like tribal sounds. And so I think that each EP will have its own sound to it, and it's just going to keep evolving. I think that
Mhm,
for me, my openness to receive is kind of the goal, to just keep being open to receiving whatever needs to come.
mhm.
Hmm.
Okay, amazing. And we kind of touched base like a little bit on this, but what can we expect from you in the future? Like, what kind of stuff do you want to put out as an artist, as an individual?
In the future, I definitely want to start a foundation. I definitely I want to release more music that brings people in tune with themselves, more in tune with themselves, that connects people to who they really are, that has messages that, even if it sounds simple, it goes way deeper than we might think. Um,
Mhm,
I think that that's a big goal for me. And I think that what I write now is more that way. So I'm excited for when that time comes. I definitely want to have my own tours and have my own
mhm,
shows and stuff, meet people in different countries and all of that type of stuff. So hopefully that will
mhm,
happen when it needs to happen.
mhm. All right. And do you have any like advice or message that you would like to give out to your followers or people who are fan of your music and you as an individual?
Well, I just want to express my gratitude for everyone who is my fan and follower and who resonates with the art that I make and the person that I am. I want to appreciate you guys for experiencing something that's different, and having an open mind to receive what I make.
Mhm.
Um, Advice wise, if you don't love yourself today, it doesn't mean you can't love yourself a little bit more later on today or tomorrow or whenever you feel like you need extra support. The only person that's with you your whole life is you. So
Mhm.
give that person inside love every single day, and you'll see that over time you'll start to believe it, even if you don't believe it right now. Um, and the world will treat you as you treat yourself. So
Mhm.
remember that, and I hope that that's helpful.
All right, no, that's a good advice. With that, we have come to the very end of our conversation with Allison today. Thank you for our listeners and viewers for joining our conversation. And Allison, I wish you the very best on your upcoming project. I can't wait to listen to your new music that's dropping this by the end of this month. And yeah, thank you for giving us your time and taking the time to speak with us today. And for Next Big Thing magazine, I'm your host, Didi Kadel.